Welcome to another episode of Wayne's World of Science and Technology. Today, I want to talk about culture, specifically culture in Ukraine. I don't know how much you know about Ukraine, but Ukraine has long had a problem with corruption, a huge problem with corruption. And Canada was among the countries that was pushing very hard for Ukraine to clean this up. Now, you're going to be saying things like, and if you're American, Biden. Well, no, it wasn't just Biden. Canada was in there kicking like crazy. So was the UK. So was France. I mean, this was not a one country thing. Now, since the invasion has occurred, we now have what? They said they were trying to raise 1 million troops. Ukraine did. I don't know how many they've actually raised, but they've got a huge number of people now who have gone through military training, and military training tends to increase your confidence levels. It used to be that corruption was more or less ignored in Ukraine. It was considered partly normal. Now we've got a whole bunch of people who have military training who are basically saying, hey, you corrupt jerks, we're out here, we're giving our lives to protect the country, and you're trying to rip off our fellow citizens. And I have seen incidents on video of Ukrainian soldiers beating the crap out of corrupt politicians who've been trying to grab cash. Think about that. Last year, you didn't see it. We've had that much of a fast change in Ukraine because of the war. Another big change, Ukraine had was very highly anti-freedom, is one way of putting it, as far as sexuality was concerned. They didn't like lesbians, they didn't like gays, they didn't like anybody who was transgender, they didn't like anybody who was asexual. Basically, it was a huge thing. And since the war started, there is now a unicorn brigade in the Ukrainian army, which is heavily made up of LGBTQ community members. And there's a lot of them serving through the rest of the forces. This has forced the Ukrainian population to rethink their position on things. If you don't know anybody who's gay, or anybody who's lesbian, or anybody who's transgender, you have no idea what's going on. Well, now the Ukrainians know these people. They're seeing them out in the front lines fighting, for God's sakes. That makes a huge, huge difference. It is amazing the shift in 8 months in how the LGBTQ community is viewed. And that change, that shift in attitudes is also spilling over to other communities. Gypsies, Romani in Ukraine were typically discriminated against. Um, I've heard, and I don't know how true this is because the reporting on the Romani isn't anywhere near as good as the reporting on the LGBTQ community, but it appears that prejudice against Romani is also dropping. Unfortunately, the negative part of this, of course, is prejudice against Russians has been rising, and you can understand why Ukrainians aren't exactly happy with Russians right now. But it's an amazing thing. We're seeing this play out so fast. Last year, it would have been impossible for Zelensky to have said, okay, we're going to make same sex marriage legal. This year, he not only managed to do it, he promised to do it as soon as the war is over and they can properly, um, sorry, as soon as the state of emergency is over. That makes differences in how Ukrainian laws run, and I understand that, but he has promised to do that. Last year, he would not have. He wouldn't have dared. This shift is so massive, it is going to drag the rest of Eastern Europe into massive cultural changes along with it. Because all these Ukrainian people, they talk to people in Poland. You know what? Most Ukrainians know Russian. Most Poles know Russian, at least if they're old enough. They're, might say old enough. I'm talking people who were, say, in their late teens and when the Soviet Union fell. And there's a lot of those people around. So, yeah, we're talking that the ability of the Ukrainians to communicate with the people in the states close to them is massive because of this ability to speak Russian, which was used as a common language during the Soviet period. And therefore, because they can, because Ukrainians are very heavily involved in Poland, the Czech Republic, Slovakia, sorry, I just will put them together, a big mistake on mine part. All the Eastern European states are now looking at Ukraine, well, partly as a buffer, but also partly as a guide. And it is going to make a huge, huge difference. I have no idea where this is going to go. Um, I think it will continue to evolve to more openness, but that's based on my own personal theories about how the situation should play out, which are basically, how should I put it? They're based on guesswork, so we won't even talk about them. Anyways, that's it for this episode, folks. Thanks very much for your time. I hope you have a good day, and I hope everything's well with you. Oh, yeah, and if you want, there's a Buy Me a Coffee link somewhere in the description, and you can send me some coffee. I won't mind. Have a good day.